Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsonelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today, and I have an awesome guest. We're going to have so much fun, so get ready to have an interesting conversation. Be sure that you're planning on taking notes. And Tim, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
You're welcome. Well, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I am super excited about this. You have a ton of knowledge, so I'm really excited to be able to dive into a lot of the pieces that you have worked with and do work with your clients. So as we kind of get started, do us all a favor and tell us, who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into that space.
Yeah, a ton of knowledge. That's a euphemism of saying you're really old, aren't you? Yeah, ton of knowledge. Yeah. No,
I was saying smart, but
okay, smart. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, I worked in sales for 20 years in mainly in corporate sales, back in the 90s and the 80s. Actually, I started in the 80s. Yes, I'm that old. And got into coaching. We were due to move to the US we actually ended up moving in early 2006. But before that, I thought I do not want to do sales in the US. I know I'll be a coach because I wanted to do the coach training anyway to deal with my own stress levels. I'd already done a stress management course. And I went and did that and loved it. Immediately walked out of my sales job like 8 months before we just moved to the US. And much to the surprise of my wife, who didn't know I was going to do it, I was just like, I've had enough now. Okay, I'm going. I'm out of here. And then we moved to the US and started as a life coach. And I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. I was treating it like a holiday, as we say, or a vacation, as you guys say, and just basically just chilling in Orlando, in a house with a pool and just like, this is great. This is not like sales. And after about 2 or 3, well, it wasn't even 2 or 3 years. At the end of the first year, my wife came home one night. I was sat by the pool reading a book with the dog, and she came out and she looked at the dog and me, and I got a beer in my hand, and she said, I'm fucking holiday, and then stormed off and left me there thinking, oh God, yes, I am treating this like one big vacation. So then I need to get my shit together. And then did very well in coaching. And then around at the end of the tens, 2010, 11, I got a lot of coaches coming to me saying, can you show me how to do what you've done? Because I was fairly visible online, got a big list and what have you. So I just started organically working with other coaches, which is really what I've been doing now just coaches for about 10 years, way before, most people were doing this, before it was a thing to coach coaches. Now I'm like, oh, everybody coaches coaches.
Everybody coaches
like,
coaches.
oh, not another one. When people see me, I'm like, but I was doing it first. I invented it. Well, no, probably not. So that's where I am. So we moved back to the US during a pandemic because you're always best moving house during a pandemic when you've got two dogs and nowhere to live. We had to get back in a hurry. My father-in-law's not very well, and we are now back in England. And I'm still doing the same thing, and it took me a couple of years to pick things back up again. But yeah, and here we are, and here I am.
I love that you are so brutally honest, though, about the simple fact that, you were sick and tired of what you were doing. So when you guys made the move, you wanted to do something different. But I feel like you relate to so many entrepreneurs that I have spoke with and that I've worked with that fall into this trap of, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it my way and I'm going to do things different. And we forget that the doing is still a part of it. Like we're hoping that things are going to come to us. We're hoping that people are going to connect with us, that we can, talk in networking calls or go to networking events every once in a while. And like, that's going to bring all the people to us. It's a really different world from corporate. And even if you're in sales and corporate, seeing the way that they run things, and some places give you leads or they tell you where to go, where you're going to find the people, versus when you're coaching, especially if you're online, like that's not there.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
actually have to build it. You actually have to do the work to that. And I think a lot of people forget that, or maybe don't even realize that, especially if they've been in corporate for a really long time. They expect it to be easier because of everything they've seen from everyone else.
Yeah, and I fell into the trap what a lot of coaches do, I think. Well, first of all, I came from a sales background. So sales is often lumped with marketing. So it's sales and marketing. Everybody says, oh, sales and marketing. Yeah, sales and marketing. So I thought I knew more about marketing than I did. I was a very accomplished salesperson and always a top performer. But I actually, when it came to it, I didn't really know anything about marketing. It was completely new to me. So I was like, yeah, well, because you can't, if you haven't got your marketing right, it doesn't matter how good you are as a salesperson, but you've nobody to sell to.
Yeah.
So I made the mistake of thinking, and coaches still do this, that if I'm a great coach, I will get people through word of mouth and what have you. And it really doesn't work like that. Very few businesses work like that. You've still got to have the mechanics of the marketing end of things in place. So I just spent more and more money. I spent about, I don't know, 20 grand, 20,000 US on different training. Oh, I just need more training. Then the clients will come. And then it started to dawn on me, actually, because I didn't want to go back into cold calling, Kat. So I'd work in new business sales, which is brutally difficult.
Yeah.
I did work with companies where you had leads and other ones where you had to create your own leads as well. I didn't want to, I was determined, I'd had 20 years of that. I am never doing that again. So I went the opposite direction. Yeah, I went to like, no, I'm not leaving my office. If they don't come to me, they can't have me. And people were saying, well, we don't want you then because we're not coming to you. So it was, it was a rude awakening. Or it was more like a gentle awakening over a long period of time till I suddenly thought, holy crap, I'm going to have to go. But I even had my resume back up on Monster and we were starting to think, I'm going to have to go back in sales. But I just so didn't want to. I mean, at least in the UK, you get 5 weeks paid vacation a year. I'd have probably got 1 week if I was lucky. And selling in a completely new environment would have been
Yeah.
difficult, been testing. So I just thought, okay, well, I've got to figure out marketing. So I just dove into it and then found a bit like sales. I really love it. It's a challenge. It's a game, marketing a bit, and sales is the same. There's a technical element to it, but it's really just a bit of a competition, so that appealed to me.
I would love your definition or breakdown of the difference between marketing and sales. Because I feel
Right.
like a lot of entrepreneurs get those two terms confused or feel like they're exactly the same. And from what you were saying, you can have this beautiful product, but if you don't know how to market, then you're not going to get the sales. So what would you say, or what could you, tell the audience? What is the difference between those two pieces and why are they so important to go together?
Well, I think a sales organization, obviously the marketing and the sales are two distinct things. The marketing is making people be aware of what it is that you've got, the offer, the solution that you can provide for a problem. with sales, normally as a salesperson, you go into somebody that have a general idea of what you do or the problems they've got. With marketing, you're trying to find those people. So they're the front end of it. Now, obviously, marketing as well is broken down to so many different things. You got messaging and positioning and branding and niching and all that kind of stuff. So it's a huge umbrella term that basically covers everything up until the sale, till the last bit. And that last sort of 10%, 5%, whatever it is, then that's the sales part. So yes, you need to know how to do that. But to be honest with you, Kat, now, even though sales is the thing I was probably most skilled at my entire life, even though I'm a pretty good salesperson, my selling is done with my marketing, with my positioning, with the content that I put out there. So very rarely do I get on a consult with somebody that doesn't turn into a client, because they already know me. That part of the journey, they've already gone through it. So it's just a question of whether they want to hire me or not. It's not really. I don't have to sell coaching or even sell me, because they've normally been on my list for a period of time, or they're in my Facebook group or in my circle community or whatever. So I think the marketing element is way, way more important than sales. Sales is important, especially at corporate level. If your sales team aren't, plugged in, then you're screwed. But the marketing, it is possible to run a business for me without doing sales per se. I'm very hands off when I get on a consult with the clients. Like, look, if you want to hire me, that's great. If you don't, that's great as well. But I wouldn't advise people to sell like that. But I think the marketing part of it, for an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, the marketing is far more important than worrying about sales.
And I agree with you on that, but I love the fact that you made the point that your sales is that last like 5 or 10%. It really isn't the other aspect of what you're doing. And what I've noticed for a lot of coaches, one, they're like, I don't want to be salesy. Okay. And two, I want people to work with me because they know me and they like who I am, right? Like a lot of people are trying to bring their personality into what it is that they do, which is wonderful. I think that's great. I think that's what makes everybody different. Even if you're coaching on something similar, I don't think people understand the marketing piece and how you can intertwine your personality, who you are, how you function, so that people can kind of bridge that gap themselves to make the decision on working with you. And then your consult call, like you said, is really just kind of the last piece.
Right, yeah. And I think for entrepreneur, all branding, there's a lot of talk about personal branding. And this was something, a phrase that really I don't think I'd even heard of 20 years ago. And now it's a lot about personal branding. But all entrepreneurs should be into personal branding, and not even just entrepreneurs. We see it now. We see it in politics. We see it in athletics. Look at Taylor Swift. I mean, literally, possibly the greatest personal brand there is on the planet at the moment. So we see this all the time, and coaches need to be more aware of that, and entrepreneurs need to be more aware of that. It is all about how people relate to you as a person. And just going back to sales as well, Kat, I think the problem with sales, it's nearly always mindset with people, because they go into, oh, I've got to sell this, or I've got to sell that. No, you haven't. You've got to go in to see if you've got a solution to a problem. It's when we think about ourselves, it's for us. All good sales is about creating win-win solutions. So I work for some very massive multi-billion-dollar sales organizations that didn't operate with a great deal of integrity. One of them was a company called ADP, Automatic Data Processing, biggest payroll company in the world. Second biggest in the UK when I was working for them. Now, I could go in and sell that ethically because the service was fantastic. So I didn't need to get wrapped up in all the other stuff. I just needed to go in and figure out, okay, well, what's the service offering I've got that I can sell? And if people did that more, how can I help this person? Then the sale is just the natural byproduct, or end product rather, of that process, rather than, oh, I've got to sell this, or I've got to hit this target, or I need to do this. So it's going in with that, how can I help this person? Because that's what we're doing with a sale. We all like buying stuff. We don't look down our noses at the people we buy from. I bought a new MacBook the other day. I wasn't like, damn you, Apple, making me buy this. I was like, no, I want to know, a MacBook. Yeah, please. Another one, yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's all about mindset and thinking, I don't want to be a sleazy salesperson. We don't need to
Hmm.
be.
Yeah. I love that you bring that up because I feel like that is something that needs to be talked about so much more. And I don't think people realize that. And I think that we forget that, in my opinion, a lot of the coaches that I have spoken with or that I've worked with, they got into this realm of entrepreneurship because they were lacking the person to help them through a specific search situation. So once they got through it, they created that space so that they could
Mhm.
then help others with it when they knew what it felt like when they were going through it.
Mhm.
So I love this concept of you are trying to help someone, you are not selling them something, because ultimately I feel like that's really what it is. Now granted, I have worked in sales before. I know what it means to have to sell
Yeah,
someone to
get
get them to
closer. Yeah,
buy a product,
yeah.
right? But I feel like that's the beauty of entrepreneurship is you don't have to. You do have to have your messaging. You do have to have that strategy. I do believe that marketing is extremely important and being authentic in that marketing. But I love that you said that sales is a byproduct of that because I don't think a lot of people realize that. Now, you may have to help someone over that hump of their own mindset of making a decision when they already know that they're wanting
Right,
to work with you, right? And
right.
I feel like that's where people kind of get hung up as well. And they feel like, oh, well, that's me being salesy. And it's like, but that's not. So how would you help someone, if they've worked on their marketing, they're getting people that are reaching out and saying, hey, I'm thinking of working with you, but as soon as they get on the call, they're bombing it, right? And they're like, well, nobody wants to work with me. They end up saying no, or they don't have the money. I personally feel like there's a disconnect, right? Where they're going into that sales mode instead of helping someone overcome their own mindset to push them to the next level. So where could you give some advice in that
Well, I
respect?
think the starting point is, I will always say to clients who are coaches, do you think you're a good coach? And for the most part, they say yes. I mean, we've got a different set of problems. If they say no, they're not a very good coach, then should you be selling something if you don't? But for the most part, they say yes. And then I will ask, well, do you think most of the coaches out there are good? And usually they say, well, probably not, or they're not, they're not as good as I am. And that's not arrogance, that's just what people see around them. So then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, you've got a duty of care to the person you're talking to help them understand that you're the right person to help them. Because if not, for me, I batter away at the message that it's really hard to be a successful coach because I know there's a lot of people out there, marketers, telling people, I can help you scale to seven figures in 7 days for 7 days. Just all this
Yeah.
effortless skyrocket. It's all this bullshit that goes on. And so I have a duty of care to help people understand, look, you can hire me and this is what I can do for you. And I'm going to be realistic about it. I'm going to tell you it's hard and you're going to have to put a lot of work in. Or you can go over there and you can go and hire somebody who's going to take a lot of money off you and probably not going to fraction the experience that I've got, not as old, but going back to before, So it's having that mindset that again, it all comes back to being there to help people. If you genuinely want to help people as a coach or as an entrepreneur, then you should be okay with telling them that you want to help them and you can help them and you can provide the solution to their problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is it's setting yourself up at the beginning of a meeting to, that you are going in to help people solve a problem. That's it. You're there as salespeople or coaches or whatever. We're there to help people solve problems. If you get into a meeting, and this happens to me a lot, I had a consult with a lady probably about 6 months ago now. She was from Mississippi, single mom of three kids, and needed to get up to six figures in 6 months. And she didn't want to travel. And I'm like, you can't do that without a significant investment in paid ads. And I'm not the person to help you with that anyway. You can't
Mm-hmm.
do that quickly. Well, all these other coaches have told me that you can. So I just said, well, I can't help you do it. And I would advise you not to do it. So sometimes we need to we need to be honest enough to step back and say, actually, I'm not the right coach for you. If somebody
Mm-hmm.
comes to me, want to help with paid ads, I am not that person. If they want specific targeted help, I may not be that person. So I'm
Yeah.
starting to ramble now, Kat. Come on, bring me in.
I love the honesty though, and I think that a, a lot of people forget that or aren't aware that they are allowed to do that. I think that for a lot of people, they've been conditioned and we've been taught a specific way. And so when you get into coaching and the entrepreneurial space, you don't even realize that that is an option. A lot of us come from corporate. With corporate, you don't get to tell your boss, like, hey, I'm, not very good at this. If you could hand it off to somebody else, that'd be great. Like you're
Right.
expected, right, to do certain things, to have certain things in place, or you could lose your job. And I love this concept of you don't have to help everybody. I think this, for anyone that's listening, please make sure you write this down and like put it on your forehead, put it on your wall, like
Yeah,
something.
definitely for tattoo.
Right on your
Definitely for
forehead.
permanent,
Because
but no henna
it's
on
so it's so important to realize that yes, you want to help everyone, but you can't always help everyone. And you do have, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have two types of people. You have those that are in this space that really want to do something with it and are willing to push themselves if they have the right people to push them. Or you have the other people that got into it because they thought they were going to get freedom and a ton of money. And so they are looking for the quick fixes, the quick way to make money, the quick overnight success. And those are the ones that I feel like you can't help until they come to their own conclusion of realizing that entrepreneurship is for the long haul. It's not an
Yeah.
overnight success.
Yeah, I totally agree that and to be honest with you, Kat, I think there's a lot less of the get rich quick people in the coaching industry than many people realize. Looking out, I've worked with literally hundreds of coaches over the years that have either one-on-one or have done my courses or masterminds or group coaching. Most
Mm-hmm.
coaches go into it because they want to help people. And most coaches, they feel like it's a passion of theirs. But being passionate it's not enough writing on your website, I'm passionate about being a coach. It's just not enough. You've got to go out there and prove it. You've got to be passionate by getting up an hour earlier in the morning and doing work or sticking with it. Or when I've had coaches saying, really don't feel comfortable doing that. Well, I don't give a shit, to be honest. You're going to have to do it because the competition is so brutal if you don't. And going back to what we we're saying about not trying to coach everybody, anybody that's done this for more than a few months and worked with more than a handful of clients knows that when you do take that client on that wasn't right for you on a consult, it's a nightmare. It's just you don't enjoy it, they don't enjoy it. You're not looking forward to the calls. You're wondering what you're doing, and it's just in 19 years of coaching, only once have I taken a client on that I was unsure about, and it's gone well. Now I don't do that anymore, Kat, and probably haven't done it for 10 years. But every time I'd be like, oh, I could probably do this, or I could probably help with that. It's like the arrogance or the fact that you don't want to turn money away. And every time it was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I shouldn't have done this. I really shouldn't have done it. So we have to recognize, work with the people that get us fired up.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And you said that it gets you fired up, right? So
Hmm.
in my personal opinion, when I'm thinking about this, you're also bringing a different energy into that space when you're having
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
conversation, right? If
Yeah.
you get onto a call and you already know that you were dreading it, you've been waiting for 10 minutes for them to get on because you knew this is going to be terrible and now you got to waste this hour, you're bringing that energy onto the call. So even if that person is thinking different or maybe is like right there at potentially having a breakthrough, you're you're not there to help them. You're just there to get through it. And I love that you say that. Like, if it doesn't get you fired up, you're not going to bring that to the client. Then how is the client supposed to feel that from you? How are they supposed to get excited about their business or whatever it is that they're working on if you're coming in with gloom and doom right off
Right.
the rip?
Exactly. Yeah. And even if you're good at faking it, people are very good at picking up on unspoken messages or body language, or even if they
Yeah.
don't even know they've picked up on it. And you've got just, I'm not a woo-woo kind of a guy, but you can have that. You may have noticed by now, but you can have that negative energy.
Yeah.
And you don't, when you're enthusiastic and you're bubbly and you're going for it, you're more likely to throw out ideas that may seem ridiculous, but then you can fine tune them or what have you. But when people get on the defensive or when they're trying to force it all the time, it just doesn't work. And it's also unfair taking somebody's money off them in those circumstances. You
Yeah.
absolutely do. It goes back to sales. It's not about taking money off. It's about finding a solution. If you don't think you are the solution, then you're ripping people off if you're taking the money from them.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that one. Now I want to kind of go back to the marketing piece that we were talking about earlier. What are some of the biggest failures that you've seen people make when it comes to marketing their business?
Oh, I would say there's a couple of things. So, yeah, thanks for dropping this on me. Great, but no, this is good. I think the start of any. Let's take coaching. So the start for any coach, there's two things that you need to have in place, or three things. So your niche and your client avatar, and then your branding. Okay. So the first thing is in niching with coaches thinking that a niche is anything other than how you market yourself. So a niche is just how you market. It's not how you coach. So people think, well, I'm a coactive coach, so I should be able to coach everybody. Yes, you can, but you can't market to everybody. So it's deciding, I'm just going to go after that particular marketplace. Now, I'm not saying you can't succeed as a coach without a niche, because I did it. So my original website, A Daring Adventure, which is still there with me looking about 15 years younger than I am now, still up there, didn't really have a niche, but had a very strong brand. So that comes to the second thing. The second mistake I see coaches making is thinking, goes back to the personal brand, not realizing they're just talking about their values, their personality coming through the way they present them online, thinking that branding is something that big businesses do. Your brand, everybody's got a brand. It's what other people say about you. Influence that with your branding. So it's thinking, well, what do I want to represent? So I am very salty. I swear a lot. I'll call people out. I'll be honest. So that's my brand. That comes through. I will throw one F-bomb into every email, whether I need to or not. And that's because in case there's somebody new on, they read that. If that's going to offend them, okay, you best move on now.
True.
I will talk about politics. I will talk about, I've talked about, I had to kick somebody out of my group the other day that was getting all anti-trans. I'm like, I'm not having that in my Facebook. So that's part of my brand. That's part of who most people are going to see that thing. Well, that's a bit weird. And they'll keep moving, So coaches, it's like, well, I love coffee on my website and little kittens and what. Yeah, but it's not really, people don't care about that. So it's the positioning and the messaging. And then I mentioned core values. So I'm passionate about core values. I wrote a book, Core Values, which is bringing your values or what you stand for into your branding, saying this is what I believe in, this is what I stand for. You may not, and that's fine, and I'm not the right coach for you, or you may. That doesn't mean to say everybody has to have the same beliefs as you, but they have to understand how you see things, your worldview. So not being afraid to share that, because you're going to piss some people off. Yes, you are. If you're not pissing people off with your marketing, then you're not marketing properly. And that goes right the way through successful businesses. They're always trying to polarize the marketplace, because if you don't get any real fans. You just get people think, yeah, they're all right, yeah, and nobody wants to hire you.
I love the polarizing piece, because I think that to me is genius, but it's also a really easy way to push people to you and then also repel those away, so that you aren't having to dig through 50,000 leads of people who may potentially be interested in. I think that that's one thing that a lot of people get confused, because a lot of sales, even when I was in real estate, they talk about you just have a giant pipeline. You have this huge funnel at the top, and then you funnel people down into it. But if you're marketing correctly and you're bringing a sense of you and you're pushing out those values while you're talking about what it is that you do, you're also going to shrink that funnel a little bit at the top so that you have more qualified conversations
Yeah.
versus just a huge quantity of people that now you've got to weed through and hope that you made the right decision to work with them or not to work with them because you weren't sure.
Yeah, exactly. And anybody who lands on my homepage on my website, they've got a little bit of a sense of who I am to begin with. There's a picture of me with, I can't remember, one of my dogs in the garden. The copy, there's a lot of humor in the copy. And I don't take anything I do too seriously. I really don't. Half the time I've got my tongue in cheek. I don't like using emojis. I use a lot of sarcasm. I love sarcasm, but I won't use emojis. So sometimes people are, is he being serious or whatever? Usually I'm not being serious. So some people gel with that, and great. So it's like you say, it's a great way of funneling people out. So and that's fine. I don't, not everybody can hire me. Not 1% of people that land on my website can hire me, nor would they want to. For most people, it's not right. And that's great. But it's this, so many coaches try to appeal to everybody. Well, I don't want to, I don't actually like upsetting people. I genuinely don't like doing it. But I can't, I mentioned the client avatar before. I've got a very
Mm-hmm.
specific client avatar. I know who I'm talking to, and they've got a sense of humor. They don't mind that I swear from time to time. They're fairly liberal, and then so anybody that's outside of that, then and some people do hire me that are way outside of that, but I'm not talking to them directly all the time when I'm writing and when I'm creating content. I mean, anybody see any of my videos, nearly always when I'm out with walking the dogs on the moors, and I'm stumbling over my words and stumbling over the dogs, and it's just like that's it. That's who I am. Nobody gets on a call with me and thinks, "Shit, he's nothing like I thought he would be." It's like, yeah, it's exactly like he's can't shut up, and like now, basically, just case in point.
No, there's so many nuggets in this though, because again, we're going back to this natural sense of relationship building. You're going back to pulling your values and pulling who you are and making it the front so that people realize who they are dealing with and if they want to continue following you. I mean, when I hired my first coach, one of the reasons why I hired her was because I stalked her for like a year. And I loved the fact that she had this amazing brand and was a huge coach, but she wore sparkles and a crown. And I was like, oh, you can do that? Because
There you
I
can.
only knew, yeah, I only knew suit and tie and very professional and like,
Yeah.
straight face. And so the authenticity that she brought through that and the I don't give a shit attitude was
Mm.
just fantastic. So I was drawn to that. And I did. I followed her for a year before I finally reached out. I took every free thing that she offered just so I could test things out. I fell in love with her. And then I ended up hiring her as my coach. And she was
Who is she?
exactly,
Who is she?
her name is Kimberly Spencer. She is the founder of Crown Yourself and Communication Queens Agency. She is phenomenal. I love her energy. I love her as a person. I still do some things with her now, today, with her podcasting pieces, but I loved who she was. She was a very real and authentic person. And everything that she talked about and everything that she shared, and even things in her podcast, was exactly what I got when I worked with her, which
Right,
was
right,
really, really
yeah.
cool. And I appreciated that. What would be your suggestion, though, to those that, let's say, have a quirky sense or, know that they want to share pieces of themselves, but have no clue what is considered acceptable and what is considered
Mm.
not, and how you even start weaving that into your brand?
Well, I think in terms of what's acceptable, pretty much, we've all got a certain level of common sense. I mean, my wife doesn't think I've got that much, but I've got some common sense. I think we sometimes, we usually know if we're going a little bit too far. I think, it's not right for most people to talk about politics like I do, or I verge on the sort of black side of humor. But I think think about, well, what's your personality? If you're sat around just talking with friends, what's your personality? Now, you don't have to put the really edgy stuff out there, but your personality, people have got to be able to read it, or people who know you and think, people read my stuff. Yeah, I could tell Tim wrote that. It's clearly Tim. Nobody else would be stupid enough to use an analogy like that or talk about otters like I did in the last post. So cute. So I think it's just being yourself, and I would never talk about issues I'm going through if I was going through any. So it's not great to say, if you're a stress management coach talking about how stressed you are, it's like, well, hang on a minute, I'm not sure I want to hire somebody, or, relationship coach, oh, my marriage is falling to pieces. That's probably not a sensible thing to do. Wait till you figured it out, and then maybe you can talk about it. But talk about stuff that will, I think it's being vulnerable as well. So it's admitting that we're human. We fuck up, and I talk as much on my list about the mistakes I've made as I do about the times that I've got it right, because you don't have to make the same mistakes as I do. Yes, we learn we all have to make some mistakes, but sharing those is really important. And when you do that, there's actually something called in cognitive, in behavioral science, you may be familiar with the pratfall effect, which is if people trust you and then you make a mistake or you screw up, they trust you even more. So it's just, and we do. Who is it? Lululemon did this. They do this thing where everybody knows Lululemon. They don't say having a sale or whatever. They say, we've made too many of these. Do you want to buy some? And that's called the transparency effect in marketing. So it's just building that trust, building your tribe, and just being you. So try being you. Too many coaches try to be what they think other people think a coach is. Here's a tip, right? Nobody's looking to hire a coach, or very few people. They're looking to solve a problem. So when we try to be a coach, it's like most people haven't got a reference point for what that is. Unless they've already hired a coach, most people don't really know what a coach is or what it does. You've got to be the solution to somebody's problems. I'm looped right back to the beginning, but do it with your personality and talk to people so they feel like they know you. We hire people. We're much likely to hire somebody we feel like we know and we trust, and we go, I get this person. They're all right. I would hire this person. But some won't. And some are like, my God, he's got Dobermans. He's a psychopath. I bet he sacrifices virgins on a Sunday evening. So they're like, yeah, well, I do, but not every Sunday, So that's
once
fine.
a month.
Yeah, just twice a month. But so it just try being yourself. Because most of the people, we like people when we know them for who they are, don't we?
Yeah.
Nothing worse than liking somebody and thinking, God, they were nothing like I thought they were. It's horrible, isn't it? We feel like we're being cheated. We feel stupid for not seeing through. So let people see you who they are, and then you're never going to let them down. If they don't like you, who cares? Because you don't want somebody hiring you for somebody you're not anyway.
Yeah. Definitely. And then it goes back to, we talked about where that negative energy is there. You're not enjoying the conversation. The whole process sucks, just the whole 9 yards.
Well, look how we got to how we met, Kat. It was me emailing you on LinkedIn because I thought, you know what, I'm going back on LinkedIn and I'm just going to do it differently. I'm not going to pitch to anybody. So I've been back on LinkedIn now 6 months. I haven't pitched to a single person, even via DM when people have contacted me. I've had at least 3 clients from there now, and it was just being different. Look, can I help? Now most people think, yeah, really, this is not happening. There's something going on here. And you don't hear from them. But some people think, okay, well, maybe this guy's being honest with what he's doing. And he's just trying to help people. And eventually people think, well, actually, I'd like to hire him. And that's happening.
Yeah, I appreciated the conversation and the honesty. So, but, oh my gosh. Okay, Tim, there's so many nuggets here. I feel like we could continue talking for hours on this, but I love the authenticity. I love the realism that you bring to it. I love how much that you push people being people and
Mm.
selling from that point and having a strong marketing space from that so that your sales don't feel sleazy. Like I love that. I treasure that. I believe that more people need to be aware of that. And I believe that that is the direction a lot of people are wanting to go anyway. They don't want to be cold sold. They don't want to be talked into something. They're looking for that relationship. They're looking for that connection. And like you said, they're looking to solve that problem. So, as many nuggets as you've dropped, I have a question that I ask all of my guests, but I'm like, you've given so many. So the one question I always ask as we come to a close is, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice you would like to leave the audience with? I feel like you've given so much, but
Oh God, a quote or a piece of advice. I mean, it's going to be cliche. Well, I'll give you my favorite quote. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think how it fits in now, but my favorite quote, I don't think it's even relevant, but it's uh, there is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So it's a quote, it's a Shakespeare quote from Hamlet. There is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so, which basically means we put our own interpretation on everything. So some people will look at me and think he's an idiot. That's true. That's what they think. Other people will think, well, he seems like an okay guy. And that's true as well, because that's what they think. So it's been, I don't even know where I'm going with this cat now. So let me give some advice. Just be yourself. Try it. Try being yourself. Yeah. Forget Shakespeare. Get him out of here. Let's go back. Be yourself. Authenticity has been done to death, but people like, authenticity. So that's
yeah,
it. That.
yeah, I love it. I like the quote as well. I think that it's a
Yeah, it's a
reminder.
great quote.
A
It's a
great
great
quote.
quote.
I think it's a
Shakespeare,
reminder that it was Shakespeare, so it has to be good. But I think that it's a good
yes.
reminder that everybody has their own thoughts and you can't control those thoughts, but you can control your own. So being aware of your thoughts and don't make them and perceive them into other
There you
people.
go.
So look at that,
That's
wrapped it right
exactly
in.
what Shakespeare was thinking. Yeah,
I'm sure
exactly.
that's what he was thinking. Okay, Tim, so do us a favor then. Tell everybody, how can they find you? How can they connect with you? How can they be in your world?
Okay, all right. Well, they can find me at thefullybookedcoach.com. They can find me as just Tim Brownson on LinkedIn, and my book, The Clarity Method, which is all about core values and how to use them with clients. But now I'm showing coaches how to use them in the marketing, in the messaging. The Clarity Method, that's on Amazon, I believe.
I love that. Thank you so much. Of course, we'll have all that information in the show notes. It'll be super easy for you guys to find it, click, and link up with Tim. I strongly suggest it, especially if you love some really open humor and just someone that likes to have a lot of fun. So, Tim, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today and sharing so much wisdom.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been fun, Kat.
Yeah, of course. And to everybody else out there, I hope you got some amazing takeaways. If not, you just need to listen again. Go ahead and write it all down. You know you need to. But I think the biggest takeaway really is being aware of authenticity, being aware of your personality, and make sure that that is coming out in how you market. That is a natural way to connect with people. It's a natural way to bring people to you. It's also a natural way to repel those that you don't want anyone to deal with. So I think it's fantastic. So, again, thank you all for being a part of the podcast. Thank you, Tim. And until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.